Live. Welcome, Liam, to the inaugural Business School HQ.com teacher interview.
Well, thank you, Frank. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. So I'm pleased to have you open this series with teachers, authors. You are a teacher, an author, even learners. We're all learners. Share their experience in teaching and learning business English. So let me say a few words about you, Liam, if I may, and switch over to you. Liam is a writer, editor, English teacher, career coach. And for 15 years, he was in technology in Washington, D.C. area. And he moved to Mexico to teach English as a foreign language, where he taught for more than 2 years. He's a specialist in CVs, or resumes, and interviews, technical writing, academic writing for essays and theses. And he's also a Toastmaster and public speaker. So welcome, Liam. Okay.
Thank you.
Jump right into the first question I have for you. I have a lot of questions, and I know you'll I want you to share your experience. So you've taught business writing to professionals in Mexico, and tell me about that teaching experience.
Well, when I started teaching, I was already a writer and an editor. So I knew English well. What I did not know very well was the ESL student's perspective. I had to adjust my speed with which I spoke, my pronunciation, and my choice of words. I learned to speak in what we call cognates, which are words that are similar in both languages. For instance, I would stop using the word often, and I would use the word frequently, because it's similar in Spanish to frecuentemente, and they would understand that. So I taught classes completely in English, which was a challenge for the students, but they would be able to catch on, and it was a challenge for me to communicate completely in English in ways that even beginners would understand. But I did better and better, I think, and one day, one of my students said, "Teacher, your accent in English is much better this week." Yeah, so they were a fun group. And it was a lot of fun.
And let me ask you about writing skills. What kind of writing skills did your learners want to improve?
Honestly, there is a huge emphasis on conversation skills in Mexico, to the point where general English classes will only really use written exercises to drill things like grammar and vocabulary, new verb tenses, things like that tie into that class's exercises. However, many people are in English-speaking careers down there, so they do need to write resumes or CVs and do part of an interview in English, usually about 10 to 15 minutes in conversational professional English. So one of the things that I would do with those students is have them write down their answers in order to, again, practice their writing and reinforce all of that information. But I also found a need for specialized writing. Some graduate school programs require their students to write theses and dissertations in English.
Wow.
And I also spoke with professional translators who wanted to learn the nuances of especially written English.
Wow, that sounds like a challenge. Tell me about emails and short reports. Did learners want to write better in those kinds of documents?
We did a bit of that in the classroom with our business English program. Those assignments really give the student a chance to practice and to succeed, because they're typically one page or less with a particular structure. And structure is really important for anyone doing something for the first time or learning it as a beginner level. So those are the keys really to any successful writing exercise for English students. Make it short so that it's something that does not overwhelm them. They feel that they can achieve it, and have the structure that they need in order to complete the assignment.
Sounds like students enjoyed your classes.
I hope so.
What about the two? Tell me about the two writing activities, one or two writing activities that you found most effective with your students.
Well, one of the seminars I delivered while I was in Mexico was on writing cover letters for job applications. Specifically, I used what is called a T-style cover letter, also known as an executive style, in which there is basically a table in the middle of the page, one column having the main requirements of the position, and the other column listing what qualifications and experience the candidate has that matches. So there's this nice structured table in the middle, half of which the text comes from the job announcement. So already the student has a chance to fill in part of the assignment without having to put a lot of energy or thought into it and getting anxious about trying to complete this. So part of it's already done. So, and so part of the cover letter, the other part, they get to fill in things about themselves and from their own experience. And then above that, there is an introductory paragraph. Below it is a concluding paragraph. So it gives the structure, and it's less than one page in order to help the student succeed.
Fantastic. I know you're a great believer in conciseness, shortness, and making life simpler for your students.
Yes, yes.
Concise
writing is better writing.
Sorry?
Shorter is better.
Shorter is better. Liam's catchphrase. Okay, tell me about some of your favorite books or online resources that you like to use.
Oh, sure. I think everyone has their favorites. The school director showed us EnglishClub.com, which I found very useful, providing simple explanations to some rather difficult to teach grammar points. For instance, positions of adverbs is a bit difficult, and that takes some explanation. But EnglishClub.com is a really good website that provides a lot of explanations that teachers can use and that students can learn from if they don't have the teacher available that particular day. Another good one for both teachers and students is Paul Bryan's book, Common Errors in English Usage. It will distinguish between there, and there. It will distinguish between ensure and insure. It will point out common misspellings of words, and so forth. So Common Errors in English Usage is another favorite of mine. And then for professionals, for instance, if someone is a translator or if someone is in academia for language and so forth and really wants to learn some of the more detailed points, I use the Columbia Guide to Standard American English. This is something I use as a professional editor when I'm working on documents, and I recommend it to anyone who's learning English at a more advanced level and doing a lot of writing. Okay. Oh, and one more, which is popular across the board for all students and professionals in grammar, is called the Blue Book of Grammar.
Fantastic. On the topic of books, tell me a little about your own writing book.
Oh, my own book. Well, my own book is about career skills and job searching. So I focus on writing resumes or CVs, writing cover letters, practicing interview questions, and I even go into negotiating salary, which is something that a lot of people don't think they can do, but that's normally because people have never learned how. So I like to teach that one as well.
Important skill.
Mm-hmm.
What's the number one tip you would give teachers of business English writing?
Well, right now, accent training is becoming more and more in demand. The students need to learn to speak to other people who are speaking English who are not native speakers. So someone from Argentina may be speaking with someone from Japan or China, and they're all speaking English. So accent training right now is huge, and not just the native speaking countries. It's really from all around the world. There is native speaking English from different countries, and then there's international English. And I think that's a really big point that teachers need to be aware of.
Fantastic. Now let's move to learners. What's your number one tip for learners to improve? Well, I'm a specialist in business writing. Give us a tip.
Okay. Well, if you need to use translation software, which is okay, I find that Bing.com, their translator, is better for common conversation phrasing. And Google Translate tends to be better for formal language. But it is interesting to look at both translations together because a lot of times they will be identical, but sometimes they will differ. And it's interesting to look at them side by side if you have time to play around and say, oh, you know, this is different phrasing here. That's interesting on the different softwares. So, but when you write something for someone else, you know, you're sending it to someone, like we said a few minutes ago, shorter is better. So for students of English who are feeling some anxiety about writing something to someone, remember, shorter is better. People don't want to read a book about the topic. People want to read 2 paragraphs. Provide the information, ask the questions in a fairly direct way, keep it short, and people will be happy.
Makes life easier.
Yes.
Good.
But shorter is better, and think about organizing your ideas. That's the other thing I wanted to point out.
Now, some tips for me. I'm in the process of creating a program, an online business writing program geared towards intermediate and advanced business professionals.
Excellent.
What are some of the things that I should keep in mind?
Okay. Well, one of my PhD students in Mexico taught me that Spanish speakers express ideas very differently. Mexican culture, and I think the Spanish language in general, tends to be more indirect and more fluid, less structure about it. Mexicans take time in getting to the point. So they'll talk about things, and eventually, through the conversation or through the writing, they will eventually get to what they're really saying. English is the flip side of that. One of my colleagues, one of my other teachers in Mexico, put it very succinctly. He said, English is efficient. Get to the point. So, you know, remember to keep repeating the fundamentals of any communication also, which is audience and purpose. Who is your audience? Why are you writing to them? And why is this person reading what you wrote? So those are really the fundamentals of any communication. And I think that will help people keep it short, keep it focused, and get to the point. English is efficient.
Fantastic, fantastic. And in the name of efficiency, can you summarize your 3 main points that you like our listeners to take away?
All right. Well, for teaching, remember structure. Structure your exercises. Structure your students' thinking. Even if a student may be advanced level, if you're teaching them something new, for instance, I was teaching someone who was near fluent in conversation. I was teaching her academic writing for a PhD. So she was a beginner at academic writing. So I introduced lots of structure within the context of academic writing lessons. To clarify vocabulary, I think common errors in English usage is going to be a great resource for teachers and students. And then accent training is becoming huge. It's why our school rotated teachers among our classes to expose students to different accents, different cultures, people from different parts of the world. And not all of our teachers were native English speakers, or not all of our teachers were Mexicans. We also had people from India, which is a very difficult accent for most English students of English, the Indian accent, and then some other parts of the world as well. So our students really benefited from the accent training.
Fantastic. Now, I don't want to take up too much of your time, Liam. You sound like a busy person.
It's all right. I'm glad to be here.
Any final thoughts for the Business School HQ community?
There is one thing that I learned during my teaching in Mexico, and that is for common conversation and expressions. I found that the word get is the central point of the English language. We use get in so many different ways. I counted up with my students and fellow teachers, and we got up to 20 different uses of the word get, or in a phrasal verb like get up, get over, get out, things like that. We came up with 20 different varieties, and it is so, so common. So I made it an activity in some of my classes, and I called it Get It, in which everyone who said something during the conversation, and it could be about anything, you know, okay, we're going downtown to go shopping, and we're going to buy some music and movies, so we're going to an electronics store, and then we start a conversation. But everybody had to use the word get in some form in everything they said. And I would have it up on the board listing all the different possibilities. Oh, I'm getting sick. Oh, you need to get out of here. Go home. Oh, but first I have to get that movie. And on and on.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for participating, Liam. And if I was really impolite, I'd say get lost.
Get out of here.
Keep well, and we'll touch base soon. Good luck.
Thank you, Frank. Great to be here.
Bye now.